Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Jujutsu Kaisen spoilers. Today, after the long hiatus, we've gotten Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 263, which honestly is pretty much just the last half of 262 as we get confirmed. But either way, I'm happy to see that Gege isn't compromising story or extending chapters and adding extra pages where they're not necessary in order to just bloat things up. He said, you know what, I've got a schedule, I've got a structure, and I'm gonna follow it. There's a lot of also story beats in this that not only give us a lot more context to 262 and fix a lot of the quote-unquote problems that people were having with the chapter, and there's also plenty of different callbacks to other pieces of the story. So this chapter, even though there's a lot of mixed reception on it I've seen, is definitely one that proves to you that Gege has had a story planned for this part for a long time and is sticking to it, because there's multiple callbacks to previous chapters before. But thank you guys all so much. Hit that like button and let's get right into the chapter summary. So of course we start off exactly where we left off with a nice little illustration of Yuta holding Rika and crying. We do know that there's a big chance Yuta may not come back from this, so Rika is genuinely just upset that she could potentially lose her best friend and quote unquote, would you call it a lover at this point? I don't even know. But anyway, it's proven in the domain clash that Yuta is not able to use any other curse technique besides Limitless, much to, Sukuna's happiness, because Sukuna was all aware of Yuta's curse copy technique. Sukuna's down his two arms on the left side, so he can't use World Bisect and Cleave, so that means it's basically just a big battle between Sukuna's domain amplification and the best Yuta can do with Limitless possible. Because it's also proven here that even though Yuta is trying, Gojo's body is completely different than Yuta's, meaning his arms and legs are much longer. We know Gojo's significantly one of the tallest people in the series. So when he's throwing punches and throwing kicks, the direction that he's throwing them in is not always the greatest, and he might even miss attacks. And the problem is Yuta kind of always had a feeling that one, swap wouldn't be enough to learn all the dynamics of Limitless. And this pretty much proves it, because not only is Yuta having trouble using Limitless on the fly like this, he's having trouble using the 6 eyes, which confirms that one, Gojo really did put in effort and had his own merit to things. You can say that he got lucky and that he's this character that was born with these amazing curse techniques and abilities, and that's why he was so strong. He was born a prodigy. He changed the balance of the world upon birth. But at the end of the day, Yuta not immediately being able to use Limitless like a master here proves that Gojo spent his entire lifetime, multiple years, fine-tuning Limitless, 6 eyes, and all of his cursed energy to the point that he can use things that not too many other 6 eyes users in the past were able to do. We already saw this after Hidden Inventory with how Gojo was able to use red, how Gojo was able to use purple, and how Gojo was able to basically turn Limitless into an automatic shield, quote unquote, for him. Something that is probably very advanced and didn't come out of nowhere. So you have to imagine, think of Teen Gojo, and that is probably the level that Yuta is closer to right now than anything. Of course, Yuta thinks back to his sensei here. He remembers Gojo saying, "It's okay, I'm the strongest," and just thinks, wow. It took a lot of confidence to say some crazy stuff like that, because it took so much for you to get to this point. So for you to be able to casually mention that you're the strongest is really okay. Obviously, Sukuna is easily able to tell that Yuta is struggling with the curse technique, which is just good for Sukuna. Sukuna was already filled in on Yuta's curse copy technique by Kenjaku. Kenjaku mentioning that the condition is probably eating a body or eating a body part, which Sukuna is like, hey, this is probably why he can't use his other curse techniques and can only use Limitless, which gives him the advantage in the situation. He also wonders how long Yuta's curse technique is going to last, which we know there's a 5-minute limit, and Yuta, Mei, all of us considered the possibilities of a bad ending being met depending on whatever happens after these 5 minutes. I mean, Yuta could be stuck in Gojo's body forever. Yuta could literally die. So Sukuna is also considering these factors, but is slowly realizing that might not matter to Yuta. Yuta might not be planning to come back after any of this, because Sukuna thinks back to when Gojo basically did the kamikaze hollow purple, the unlimited hollow, or whatever it was called, where he took a lot of damage and almost died getting caught in the radius of the explosion, to where it's possible that Yuta, realizing that he might have no way back after the 5 minutes is up, may just sacrifice himself and call it a day to take out Sukuna, which, to be fair, 2 birds with 1 stone, because not only does this take out Sukuna, after this entire scenario, I think it's pretty fair to say that we probably shouldn't be leaving strong sorcerers' corpses around all willy-nilly. We saw what happened when Gojo tried to let Geto have a proper burial, and now we are in chapter 263 of that happening. So I would go as far as to say all sorcerers should be demanded to have a cremation after this, and if Yuta does the smart thing and takes out Gojo's body in one big display while also trying to take out Sukuna, I think, you know what, kudos to him. He's pretty smart for thinking that up. But it's funny because even as we get a small flashback and Yuta goes to hit a hollow purple, right? Gojo is talking shit to Yuta about having poor cursed energy control, which, to be fair, Gojo, bro, you have this is the one time where I've lost all of the glaze for you in that small little passage I just had in the video before, because dog, you've got an unfair advantage when it comes to cursed energy control. Who are you to talk smack to somebody about their cursed energy control? This blew my mind, but that's some of that Gojo arrogance on full display. People miss this guy. So yeah, so of course, like I mentioned before, Yuta's trying to shoot a hollow purple at Sukuna, which we know from point blank range is pretty freaking deadly to Sukuna. Sukuna wasn't even sure if he could survive the 200% one or another one if Gojo fired it off. Sukuna barely survived the unlimited hollow. So Sukuna is doing everything in his power to make sure he does not get this off. That being said, suddenly out of nowhere, Yuta uses a bull, and suddenly out of nowhere, Yuta uses a blue, and a tape recorder shows up and starts whipping around the domain expansion. I guess Yuta was hiding it in his pocket. Sukuna is rightfully confused, as much as I was, when out of nowhere, it turns out the tape recorder had Inumaki's voice on it. Sukuna gets hit with cursed speech, Yuta fully chants, and then throws a hollow purple out. What? Inumaki getting his get back for his ripped off arm is insane. Actually, now that I'm even looking at the panel here, it looks like Gege accidentally drew Inumaki's arm still there, unless he got like a mechanical arm or something. But yeah, I like to imagine that Inumaki could have gotten a mechanical arm and he was like, no, I want to remember my hatred. Like Kagurabachi type shit. And Inumaki takes massive recoil, which is an interesting thing for the fact that knowing that recoil from cursed speech happens when the cursed energy hits the target. Inumaki didn't take recoil by casting cursed speech on the recorder. He takes recoil when the recorder gets replayed and hits Sukuna, which is a wild development, but also, again, I'm just happy to see that Inumaki is getting the get back that he deserves. Get your shit straight, get your revenge, bro. You haven't done anything since the exchange event, so I will for sure take any kind of love we can get for you. But that's how the chapter ends. Yuta's got a fully charged up hollow purple that is going to go off very close to Sukuna. Sukuna's frozen with curse speech, so there's not many options for Sukuna to get out of this one besides using some kind of you know, as we already know he's possible, of some kind of binding vow, which, I mean, frankly, anything is possible. We know Gege is going to do his best to try and get Sukuna out of this situation, but this is another pretty dead to rights moment that they've got Sukuna in. proves, it seems, in my opinion, proves to be that the best tactic against the King of Curses is to freeze him temporarily and land a strong hit, because that has worked, I think, about 3 or 4 times by now. But yeah, guys, that's the chapter. There's no break, so we're right back into the release cycle of Jujutsu Kaisen. Thankfully, it was another short chapter, but again, I gotta say, I'm happy that Gege did not stress himself to get out a full, 20-page chapter this week. But also the fact that, again, he's not compromising his story structure. He's not inflating this chapter so he can hit an 18-page mark. He's not, adding in pages from chapter 264 to fill in the gap. He said, this is the way that I'm doing it. Most mangaka have like a structure to their story, right? Where they're saying, okay, at volume 10 or chapter 200, this needs to happen. Volume 20 or chapter 400, this needs to happen. You get my example. So it makes sense that Gege wouldn't want to change his story structure around. He probably has the next 10, 20 cliffhangers of how Sukuna is going to keep going, to get us through the next 2 years or so. But I'm definitely excited to see where the story goes. I'm always happy to see some unpredictability, even though I know a lot of people will say that doesn't make a good story just because it's unpredictable. I don't think it's good because it's unpredictable. I think it's good because Gege is using things in his story that he's calling back to. I mean, think about it. A bunch of chapters ago, there was Yuta and Inumaki talking at the higher up section where Yuta was like, hey, thank you, I'm gonna be putting you to work. And everyone was like, why the heck does Yuta need to get help from Inumaki? He already has Inumaki's curse technique. What's going on? Did they kill the higher ups? Did he use the curse speech to kill all the higher ups? Well, we know Gojo killed the higher ups. Now we know this is what we were talking about. So I'll leave you guys with this to the end of this spoiler review. Gege clearly knows where he's taking the story. He's not thinking anything up on the spot. He hasn't been doing this final arc chapter by chapter, wondering, oh, how am I going to get out of this one? Oh, how am I going to get out of this one? Just stuff like this alone, the Gojo 6 Eyes Limitless, as the memories are slowly filling into Yuta's body, he's gaining Gojo's abilities over time. So we've got confirmation that Gojo's memories don't immediately hit Yuta all in one snap, which was a lot of people's issues with the last chapter, which it's good that this is just the second half of 262 because it proves that Gege was always meaning to add that context. He just didn't get to. So I think overall is it proves that Gege's writing is pretty strong. And I'm very much excited to see how that strong writing either 1, gets Sukuna out of this situation, or 2, has Sukuna make the most of this situation. Because I won't act like there's not a possibility that Sukuna does get hit, gets close to death, and is forced to either A, make a binding vow to spring start the merger without killing everybody, or, as I've mentioned in a theory, eating Orame to regain his power back, which would be a great ending to the long, almost 30 chapter spanning, feet twiddling, we haven't seen shit of it fight between Hikari versus Orame. Isn't that crazy that started 237? We're almost at 264 next week. Wild. Inumaki is throwing shots at Sukuna before Hikari is. But anyway, guys, I digress. I'll let it go. Everyone hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the main channel on your way out, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.